Good afternoon. We are starting our meeting today. Our message is from the book Green Lights from the Spirit André Luiz. It's message number 38, Separations. On edification of goodness, sometimes it is necessary to accept the unreliability of many colleges and on many occasions, even those friends who are closer to us. You should bear separation as much as trees bear pruning. It is a serious mistake to retain someone with us if he does not want it to be so. Very often, our destinies are similar to roads which diverge in order to serve the demands of progress. We should never be a constraint to anyone. If we are abandoned by a partner whom we care about, whilst in the middle of a benevolent work, the divine providence will provide new people who will support us in our good work. We should never ask from others what they are not prepared to give us. Do not despise anyone. Let us learn how to pray in silence for others. Only God can judge the innermost of each one of us.
And in that way, we start our meeting today. In this ambient prepared by those who anticipated us, our dear friends in spirit, the loyal friends of Jesus, who are always ready to cooperate and to help for the good of all. May we all, ourselves and all of those in spirit who are here with us, those who came with us, those who have been brought here, those who may feel attracted to this purpose, this objective of study Spiritism. May we all in this moment look within ourselves and calm our minds and our hearts, remembering that we are all children of God, beings essentially created with love. And as we are evolving and progressing, we are evolving and developing self-love, the ability to educate ourselves in our minds and hearts and behaviors according to the will of God, who created us simple and ignorant, and always is willing to grant us possibilities as many as needed for us as educators of ourselves to freely, spontaneously choose to follow the steps of Jesus, our guide, our model, the one who is guiding us back to God, the creator of everything and everyone. God who is love, who loves us all unconditionally. And in that way, knowing that so many already worked for us to be here today, in this loving environment, in this Spiritist Center, for this unique moment of learning and study, we express our gratitude from the bottom of our hearts, with sincerity, for appreciation for all what they did to each one of us. Our gratitude towards Jesus, who once more allows us to continue our journey of evolution on earth or beyond. Our gratitude for God, the Father of all, who always and constantly is willing to promote us as long as we choose to. And with our hearts and minds connected with the goodness, with the love and peace in the universe, we start our study today, So be it. Welcome all of us here as we carry on our weekly studies about Spiritism inspiring lives. We know that Spiritism is the message that the Enlightened Spirits bring as a message of Jesus who brings the words of God. We are studying about Spiritism, understanding that is a message. All the teachings within Spiritism is helping us, inspiring our lives as immortal beings, as authors of our destinies, for us to carry on investing in our development process. And today we carry on studying about self-awareness. We studied previously about self-knowledge, and today we carry on looking self-awareness. I think there is no way that we can evolve unless we learn to become aware of ourselves. Again, as children of God, as beings essentially of goodness, and beings who are willing now to choose to move forward. For us to understand a bit the word to start with, we got the definition from the dictionary, which says self-awareness, conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. Is there anything that we can say about that? I think it covers very well in relation for us now within the Spiritist message or teachings to learn to become aware within the natural laws in the universe, which are God's laws, who we are, becoming more conscious of our own character, of our own feelings, of our own motives behind what we do in the way that we do, to become more conscious about our own desires. Because we are beings in evolution for centuries and centuries and centuries. So we do have our habits, our desires, our feelings from previous existences that sometimes we bring on our unconscious level. That today, through studying, we need to review that consciously, if those feelings, those motives, those desires, those characters are in accordance to God's laws or not. And if not, we freely choose to re-educate ourselves in a loving way. Is that okay? Then we carry on here, study a bit about self-knowledge. Starting with the first slide regarding self-awareness. What do we understand about this graphic here? Do we have an idea? The graphic in the middle, we can see the word self, correct? So what does self mean to us? What is self? Any idea? What is self? The essence of ourselves, yeah? Oh, where is that going? What happened? So we see here self in the middle, and as we are reflecting about self-awareness, we have the low awareness, the blind projection, and the driven by prejudice. If you look down, okay? Now, what do we understand about low awareness? An idea? What comes to our minds?
Is when I'm not aware of my character, my desires, my motives. Is when sometimes I don't pay attention on my essence, on myself.
The self is the essence of ourselves. Then the low awareness, we all went through already, or perhaps we still are moving between them. Low awareness means that I don't have much awareness about my character, about my feelings, about my desires, as we saw the definition previously. I'm more unconscious about it. The blind projection, if I have low awareness, then the blind projection is something that will be happening temporarily as we are in evolution, up to the moment that we become more aware of ourselves. And the driven by prejudice, of course, that shows a very unconscious level where we find ourselves. Because although we are not aware where we are, but we have been experiencing centuries and centuries of different experiences, therefore the conditionings we carry on our unconscious level. So if I'm not aware or very blind, then my prejudice, my concepts, my values, which are mistaken in relation or towards the natural laws, they may be part of my way of being in the present, but it's temporary. Now, if we are studying and reflecting the self here from the center, then we are, because it's our purpose to carry on, become more and more aware, then we develop a high awareness. We become more aware, fully, truly, integrally who we are. And that is part of the natural process of evolving. And therefore, we develop greater empathy and understanding, which is the opposite of blind projection. It's not me, it's others. Higher level and compassion. As more as we evolve in self-awareness, ourselves as immortal beings within the natural laws in life, we develop this higher self. You see the opposite of compassion, driven by prejudice, which are the judgments or the critical ways how we interact. Is that clear? Just for us to see where we are and where we are coming from. We all are coming from the bottom here. Hopefully we are going upwards. Is our hope, yeah? Then Hector Dolly says for us, Hector Dolly is the one who wrote the book, The Power of Now. And he says, awareness is agent for change. What do we learn in reflecting self-awareness within the teachings of Spiritism based on this thought? Awareness is the greatest agent for change. What comes to our minds? Why is awareness the greatest agent for change? An idea?
I think it's because if we want to know ourselves, we need to know ourselves so we can make changes. We need the awareness that we are awake, we are paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So we need this tool, this great agent, self-awareness, so we can identify where we are on that graphic, if in the bottom or on the top or in the middle, then make the change accordingly.
Yes, and choose then to change, because we are here studying within the teachings of Spiritism to stimulate our free will according to God's will, so that we spontaneously choose to change what we, through self-awareness, notice that is no longer suitable for us, who are really, let's say, learning to be more healthier psychologically and emotionally. And then Aristotle says, knowing yourselves is the beginning of all wisdom. What comes to our mind with that? In other words, if you translate that, he is saying about with the lack of self-awareness or no self-awareness, we are in our ignorance. Is that making sense? Then we go in the graphic there with the blind projections, with the prejudice. Knowing yourselves is the beginning of all wisdom. Where is the wisdom? Inside or outside?
Inside.
Inside. Why? What do we understand about wisdom?
I think wisdom is connected to making good choices. Someone who has the wisdom can make good choices for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So wisdom is about, if to know myself is the beginning of the wisdom, is the beginning of making the right choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to know myself, to be self-aware.
Yes, and wisdom we know is God's law, which are within us, and knowing myself is the beginning, because then we start to model ourselves or to shape ourselves more within the greatest wisdom, which are the teachings that come from God. That means that we, when he said the beginning of all wisdom, that means that through knowing ourselves, knowing that we bring the divine wisdom within, we freely choose now to develop our reason and our emotion, which are the two wings, we say, or the two tools that we need to develop. Learn to think for ourselves according to the natural laws, to educate ourselves emotionally in relation to the higher self, as we saw there in the first graphic. Small phrases, but very profound. And then comes Allan Kardec. Andrea, would you like to read it for us, please?
Study yourself. Mustn't that self-knowledge brings humility, and without humility, it's impossible to be happy.
So what do we learn now by the French educator Allan Kardec? He says, as Andrea read, study yourself, noting that self-knowledge brings humility, and without humility, it is impossible to be happy. Now, how do we understand this phrase in relation to self-awareness? How does self-knowledge bring humility? Do we have an idea? How does self-knowledge bring humility?
It's automatically this one.
Automatically?
No.
Are you intending there are some miracles? No, there aren't. So why self-knowledge brings humility?
Because when I know that I don't know much, I start to be an apprentice. I look life as an apprentice. So I start being humble. I start to, I can be able to learn more because I position myself as an apprentice through life.
Mm-hmm. And apart from that, would I also be right in saying that self-knowledge brings humility? Because through self-knowledge, I will get in contact with my pride and selfishness. I become aware of my pride and selfishness, and consciously, I choose now to reduce the pride and selfishness according to God's laws, and in that way, I will humble myself more. Is that making sense? That brings humility. Then he carries on. And without humility, it is impossible to be happy. Of course not. If I don't learn how to be humble, and it's not in the words on the intellectual level, it means on the heart level, I may have everything that is possible on the material level, but still I may be very unhappy. Even sometimes suicidal. Because happiness has to do with developing our hearts within the heart of God. And we have the maxim example for that, which is Jesus. He came to teach us humbleness, the great power within, that we don't want to be who we are not, and we are loving ourselves where we are, knowing, as Socrates said, that what I know is that I don't know nothing. That doesn't mean that we haven't learned anything, but it places us in the right place where we are at the beginning of our journey. If we consider this regarding the scale of evolution, of course, if I know that I'm still in a primitive state, I know very little in relation to the universe. But it doesn't put myself low in an inferior, complex level. It just, with humbleness, places me where I am as a child of God, divine being, as all we are, and carry within all the power, knowledge, and tools in terms for us to learn to be happy, and then progress in this way of developing ourselves gradually. It's a gradual process. Then moving on to the next one, Saint Teresa d'Avila. Read for us, please. Gracias.
Humility is to walk in truth.
Good. If you didn't know before what Allan Kardec was saying, now Saint Teresa d'Avila is coming to teach us in this little phrase. Humility is to walk in truth. It seems that we are complicating things because the higher beings present things in such a simple way. Now, we are learners. How do we understand that? What comes to our minds when we hear humility is to walk in truth? How could we decodify it that others could also learn with us? What does it mean? Humility is to walk in truth. Has that to do for me to do what I want to do? So, what is it referring to? What is the truth? My truth? Your truth? Our truth? People's truth?
God's truth.
God's word, the creator of everything and everyone. So humility is to walk in truth, means learning to develop our hearts and minds in relation to the truth that comes from God, which in essence means developing the virtues, to becoming a better person, a more fraternal being, a more sincere being in my intentions, more friendly, more solidarious, more forgiving, more indulgent. Can we be indulgent? Can we forgive if we don't develop humbleness? No. So that is what she means. Because we need to really develop that great power internally, understanding that if we choose to walk in through according to God's laws, that is the way that we are progressing, evolving, and therefore also becoming happier beings. Happier. Anything else? Then let's reflect with Socrates. He says, true wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and the world around us. How is that connected with self-awareness? Can anyone make a link?
The humility is when we realize how little we understand about life. So it's making the link with the humility we saw before with this Socrates saying now, I think. So we can only choose good and we can only be happy if we realize how little we are, how little we know about life.
Mm-hmm. How ignorant we are. Because the opposite of wisdom is ignorance, isn't it? And we don't need to feel depressed when we say that. It's just, again, understanding how the pathway of evolution unfolds in us. So when we hear beings like Socrates, who anticipated Christ, preparing already the references, and he says, true wisdom comes to each of us when we realize how little we understand about life, ourselves, and on the world around us, is helping us to get free from our ignorance, and in that way to see that we have much more things to learn in the universe than what we learned, and also to flexibilize ourselves in our belief systems, in our concepts, because they all need to change. Because if you are on the bottom, whatever we believe now is not closed, is not definite, is in changing, actualization about ourselves, life. What means life to us if we ask ourselves? How to understand life in this stage in my evolution? Is to work, to have money, to have sex, to have parties, whatever? Or is life an opportunity that is given from God to us, for us to engage in His natural laws and live our lives from a more deeper, profound meaning of understanding? What is the deeper, profound? The spiritual reference. The spiritual. That frees us also for us to perceive ourselves only as body beings. We are immortal beings who temporarily are in a physical body and temporarily are in a physical plane, which is earth. But we are not from earth. And the world around us. This is very important when we reflect about self-awareness and the world around us. If we don't open self-awareness and develop it, we can see whatever goes on earth in a with very dark lenses. But when we increase our awareness around the world, what is happening from a spiritual perspective under God's order, we have a different understanding. We don't get desperate. We see that everything is happening under God's eyes, although we don't know precisely the causes. But what we do know, that all of us who are on this school earth, we are here to learn to be more fraternal. Vanessa, but I don't see that in politics. We are not here to judge others. The graphic self-awareness. We are here to see if we are doing goodness. We are here to change those values. And then let's see. Do we think that we all think in the same way? We, human beings, I mean. Do we all think in the same way? Do we all see the experiences in the same way? Why not?
Because everyone has different, it's in a different part of evolution.
Okay, let's see here in a graphic again. You see, two loving beings. They are facing the same experience in front of the number 6. And you see that one says 6, the other says 9. Who is right? Just because you are right does not mean that I'm wrong. Just you haven't seen life from my side. That is so true. When we free ourselves through self-awareness or rigidity, it's very good when we clarify with people, when we talk, what they mean. Because we all see according to our level of evolution, according to our level of awareness in relation to the experiences, according to the interactions in relationships. We have different emotional and mental references that we developed so far. That means that we can see things through different lenses. And then this one says, the opposite of what you know is also true. I find it very, very funny that we need to, sometimes we may fight. No, this is 6, this is 9. When we are in that graphic showed at the beginning, or lacking self-awareness, we may be rigid, and therefore we may just negate what I cannot see from mind side onwards. It's the same, sometimes we have experiences in a house which is in the front painted, let's say red, and on the back black. And so one is in the front, so well, this house is red. The other one is in the back, said, this house is black. It's more or less the same. Instead of saying, well, let me check then what is going on the back. But we defend ourselves sometimes. And then carry on through self-awareness. Andrea, would you like to read? This is from the book Impermanencia and Immortalidade by the Spirit Carlos Torres Pastorino. Oh, Ivanisi, put something there.
The knowledge of truth frees the human being from illusions and drives him to spiritual growth, multiplying his motivations in favor of self-enlightenment, through which it becomes easier to rise into celestial dimensions.
Okay, what do we learn here now? What do you understand what this Spirit Pastorino says? The knowledge of truth frees the human being from illusions and drives him to spiritual growth. How is that? The knowledge of truth, we are already reflecting previously, is God's word, frees the human being from illusions. How does the truth free us from our illusions? How does it happen? Through self-awareness. As more as we study the truth, more we become aware of that. More we become aware of ourselves. Because the study in Spiritism is helping us to study ourselves. We need to learn to become aware. We need to become conscious of who we are. We need to become aware of our illusions. What are our illusions?
Our prejudice.
Our prejudice, our values, which are not true. They are false in relation to the superior, higher way of addressing life. Our illusions are old, wrong values and concepts and desires that we developed using our free will through our pride and selfishness, because that we will be freeing gradually, and drives him to spiritual growth. As more as we free ourselves from our own illusions, which are our imperfections, which are our shadows, more we are growing spiritually. Bear in mind that we are essentially spiritual beings, and we are on earth, or the school earth, in order to progress and grow spiritually. So becoming aware of our illusion is not a reason for us to blame ourselves or for us to feel with a low self-esteem. No, we are in a better condition now that we can notice that. Therefore, we have the possibility to also to change that within ourselves, to promote the spiritual growth. Then he carries on saying, multiplying his motives in favor of self-enlightenment, through which it becomes easier to raise to celestial dimensions. How do we understand multiplying his motivations? As more as we grow spiritually, as a consequence of freeing ourselves from our illusions, more we feel motivated to carry on our self-enlightenment process. Enlightenment means enlightening our own shadows. How do I light? Through a touch. How do I light my own shadows? An idea?
Learning new virtues.
Learning the values that represent light, which are the virtues, which are the characters of a good being, presented in the gospel according to Spiritism, and train and practice and exercise. In that way, we are enlightening ourselves. And mainly embracing this proposal as a journey of self-love. Doesn't matter how many times we need to repeat that, as long as we carry on repeating up to the point that we consolidate new values, new concepts of self-enlightenment. Is that clear? Yeah. Then Albert Einstein also says, the true knowledge comes with deep understanding of a topic and its inner workings. Is that related with self-awareness? Or not?
Yeah, because if self-awareness is the deep knowing of ourselves, like the feelings, the motivations, the
characters,
desires. So it's what Einstein is saying to us about true knowledge. So true knowledge is deep understanding of a topic. So if the topic is myself, if I deep understanding myself with all of those aspects of self-awareness, I'm reaching the true knowledge.
Correct. How do I go deeper of understanding myself? How?
Good question.
Good question. He answered here, two second phrases there, through inner workings. What does it mean, inner workings? Inner observations. Inner is exactly what Spiritism presents to us. Look within, journey within. Inner working means what? It is a constant process of becoming aware of what I think, what I feel, the actualization process, the renewing of patterns, the acceptance of new references. That is an inner active working process. Is that making sense? Yeah? Very clear here. And then in the book, Manual Prático do Espírita, Napier to Beres, helps us to reflect, saying, inner reform is an ongoing process of self-analysis, knowledge of our spiritual intimacy, freeing us from our imperfections and allowing us to achieve self-control. What do we understand about that? Or how do we understand this in this phase, current? An idea? What comes to our mind when he says inner reform is an ongoing process? Inner reform is an ongoing process, or is it just one moment of reform?
It's an ongoing process.
Why?
Because it's not like a 1 hour session. You study and then you can do it and finish that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Quick fixed.
It's something that carries on through your whole existence, because we are always learning something else on top of it. Mm-hmm. And the more conscious we have, the more we know more about the truth.
Mm-hmm. So it is a process, because we are in a process of evolution. We don't change overnight. So much so that we have the law of reincarnation. There is a process that we come back as many times as is needed on earth, up to the point that we learned in this process of progress what we need to learn here in analyzing ourselves and getting to know who we are, to connect with us on a deeper, intimate level. And that means that we need to overcome our illusions, as was presented previously, and freeing us from our imperfections and allowing us to achieve self-control. What are our imperfections? Or, I mean, humanities. What are examples of imperfections? Examples of imperfections. Don't we have anyone?
Impatience.
Impatience. What are all imperfections? Impatience. What else? Do we know? Because that is a proposal of self-awareness. If I don't know, I'm numb. I'm not. I'm still there in the self-graphic. I don't know much about. So what are my imperfections? What are my limitations? Impatience, you said, what else?
Unforgiveness.
Inability to forgive. So it's resentment, hate, pride, selfishness, vengeance. Yes. What else? Dishonesty. Yeah. What else are examples of our own limitations as immortal beings that we are here to overcome? Irresponsibility, indiscipline. Is that only with me? What else? Discontrolled eating habits, and so on, and allowing us to achieve self-control. How do we learn to have control of ourselves, of our own imperfections? Do we have an idea? How do I control my anger, for instance?
I think it starts with self-awareness, because if I identify, if I'm conscious about it, I can make something to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, self-awareness to achieve my self-control. And then I need to understand about the laws of God, which is the natural laws, and then freely try to change this to a better, not to have imperfections anymore. So change this for a better.
So to be in control of my anger means to learn to develop my emotional intelligence, that I free myself from the instinctive, reactive mood, because anger comes from the primitive states of our evolution. But here where we are in a rational level now, we are invited to re-educate ourselves and give a different direction to that inner power, which is on an energetic level neutral. But some of us, we use it in an aggressive way. Other people already control them and use it in an assertive way. And that is part of our self-awareness and progress. And then in the Spirit's book 917, the Spirit Fenelon says, selfishness is found upon the importance of the personality. When well understood, I repeat, Spiritism enables you to see things from such an evolved point of view that the sentiment of the personality somehow disappears, so to speak, before the immensity of it all. What has selfishness to do with self-awareness? What do we learn by the Spirit Fenelon in the question, part of the question 917? When we take the first part, selfishness is found upon the importance of the personality. How could we translate that with our own words as we understand it today? What comes to our minds? How would we refer to it?
Maybe selfishness is when I put too much importance to my personality and I'm not that flexible to change it.
Mm-hmm. And what do we understand about personality under the light of the teachings of Spiritism? Give too much importance to the personality. It's who I am now. My name, my body, my position. If I have money, what is current? Yeah, so I give too much importance to that. And selfishness is related to a materialistic way of living, if we study more on that. And then we get ingrained in those values for centuries and centuries. And now we are here, going through a process of self-awareness to become aware. Vanisi, you are not a physical body. You are an immortal being. Take care of the body because it belongs to God, but not excessively, that you deteriorate the real values in relation to. Is that making sense? Doesn't matter in which position you are. Remind yourself the position is transitory. Sooner or later, you will be without it. Doesn't matter if I'm in a position that I have a lot of wealth that is transitory. As an immortal being, I will have the need sooner or later to go through a new experience so that without richness, so that I can develop real values through those experiences. When well understood, I repeat, Spiritism enables you to see things from such an evolved point of view. So instead of us getting angry because of the much importance of the excessive importance that we give to our personality, we see things from a broader perspective, when they say from a higher, from the immortality of the spirit, within God's laws. Is that making sense? So if I don't have much wealth in one existence, I don't need to rebel myself, for instance. I know that is a very short, tiny period that I, as a student, go through in order to learn, surely, to develop humbleness, to develop obedience to God, to develop my intelligence, to see what else I can do and accept what I cannot do, which means flexibilizing myself. I see the experiences from a broader perspective. Okay, anything else? In the question 917, is still Spirit Fenelon. Grazi, would you like to read it for us, please?
Yes.
Let the principle of charity and fraternity be the basis of social institutions and the legal relations between nations and individuals, and all will think less of themselves when they see that others are doing so too. Thus, they will undergo the moralizing influence of example and contact.
So what we learn here now within self-awareness? Is that related to self-awareness? Are Fenelon's words related to self-awareness? Yes or no? Yes, why? When we become more aware of ourselves, will we, as immortal beings, as children of God, become more charitable? Will we become more fraternal? Will the social institutions be more fraternal and more charitable? And why will social institutions become more charitable and fraternal? It's a question. Why? Because the people, the beings who form the institutions, the individuals, as they develop and evolve themselves, they will impact the social institutions. And the legal relations between nations and individuals. What are the relationships currently on earth between individuals and nations? Healthy? Fraternal? So we can see globally, we start with ourselves, we can see globally as humanity, as one family, how we are lacking self-awareness. As individuals who are part in this global family. And yet we are here studying within the eyes of the Spiritist teachings how we can cooperate individually when we do our part. Don't change the ministers or whatever, change ourselves. Then he carries on saying, and all will think less of themselves when they see that others are doing so too. Thus they will undergo the moralizing influence of example. What do we learn here by that?
It's the power of the example. If they see one doing something that is fraternal and charitable, they will see what they are doing and they will influence other people maybe. They will impact them and can even impact a societal institution.
Correct. So do we feel motivated for us to become aware and make these differences?
Of course.
Of course. What can we do as individuals in these nations and societies and institutions where we are on earth? What is down to us that we can do in promoting the moral influence? What is possible?
We can act as fraternal and charity beings. For example, I don't know, picking litter from the floor and putting into the...
Correct. If someone left it there, instead of saying in an indifferent way, well, it wasn't me who threw it there, so I don't care of picking it up. I may choose humble myself and say, let me be an agent of promoting different patterns. What else can we do? Can we all learn to forgive each other?
I think picking litter is easier.
Picking litter is easier. Definitely it is. Definitely it is. But we can start, whatever it is, in order for us to heal our society, our institutions. We need to start to heal within. And forgiveness is part of this process. Doesn't matter if others don't do it. Let's be courageous, and do it for ourselves. When we learn to be more charitable, as Fenelon says here, when we refer in another question what charity means according to Jesus, then we learn. Charity according to Jesus means learning to be more benevolent towards everyone, more indulgent towards everyone, and more forgiving towards all. Is that clear? Self-awareness, as more as we will become aware, remember the first graphic that I showed, we are increasing awareness, we increase self-awareness, and we increase self-responsibility, and we stimulate our ability to practice charity in this deep, profound way. And we are not focused anymore, or focus less and less what other people don't do, but focus what we can do on individual level. Is that making sense? Then we carry on here. It's still Fenelon. Danny, read it for us, please.
In light of the present overflowing of selfishness, the true virtue is needed to sacrifice one's own personality for the sake of others, who generally do not recognize it.
What do we learn here in relation to self-awareness and the words of the Spirit, Fenelon?
It is not enough, because when I recognize in myself that my first thought is to complain about everyone is selfish, but it doesn't help. Mm-hmm. So it would be to maybe recognize that if people sometimes are selfish and they don't
recognize it.
They don't realize, and they maybe what we mentioned before about being what the change that we want.
So if you take your belief system, well, everyone is selfish. That is not promoting me spiritually. Then I will say, well, now I'm aware of it, and I say, well, stop. I'm not here. God didn't give me the letter saying judge everyone. No, I'm here to evolve. And then instead of saying everyone is selfish, I may look at my own selfish level and may choose freely to re-educate myself. What is the opposite of selfishness? Hello? Charity, altruism. So instead of, let's imagine, hypothetically, we are living in a building and everyone is dropping the dirt on the stairs. Instead of, oh my God, how these creatures are so selfish and careless. And we start, we notice, we are aware, say, hey, Vanessa, stop that. I became aware of my own shadows, imperfections. Be you the one who choose to go there and clean. But only me, always me. Well, you are on earth in order to be a good instrument. And what do I need to learn more in order to really bend my head? Is to learn to understand that the good that I do first for me. Because every good action that we do, although it benefits others first, it benefits us. And as we inherit ourselves, later on, I have that luggage on a moral level. Then it becomes easy and easy to be a giver in the world and not a receiver. Want others to clean that. No, go there and do it. Is that making sense? Is that easy to consider? Yes, of course, we are all learning. We are all learning. And then the gospel according to Spiritism carries on. Andrea, read for us, please.
The trials and to exercise the intelligence as much as patience and the resignation.
So what comes to our minds within self-awareness when we study the aspect in the gospel? The trials aim to exercise the intelligence as much as patience and resignation. That is very different what we learned for centuries, isn't it? What do we understand about trials? Challenges, experiences that I asked to go through. For what reason? To suffer? What for? To learn, to exercise my intelligence. How do I exercise my intelligence when I'm going through my trials? How do I do that? I need to learn to think for myself. Why I'm in this position? Why I'm in this experience? Exercise intelligence. Learn to think for myself. Not from the selfish level onwards, from the self level onwards. According to the natural laws. We all need to develop our intelligence. Is that making sense? Finding other ways out. Learn to be creative. Correct so far? As much as patience and resignation. Do we become more patient through our trials? Yes or no?
Yes.
Always? Yes or no?
Yes.
Always? Do all the spirits, when I say we, I mean all of us, do we always become more patient and more resignated when we go through our trials?
No, but we are always able to learn patience through our
We
trials.
are. But are we all engaging in that proposal? You said no. Why not?
I think eventually we learn because sometimes we need to repeat some experience a lot of times until we use our intelligence and think, why is this happening all the time?
Repeating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there is no other choice. Sometimes you have to be patient and perhaps make the changes that you need in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But why we are not always learning through our trials? Because we not always succeed in our trials, correct? Yes, we study André Luiz, we know that. We are centuries and centuries coming back. New bodies, old systems. New bodies, old belief systems. The old characters, as we showed in the beginning. So why do we not take advantage? Because of our pride and selfishness. Lack of self-awareness as immortal beings. Or arrogance sometimes. Or rebelliousness. Or illusions, as we presented previously. And the lack of resignation. Because it's no longer what I want. It's what God wants for me. What I freely choose in the spiritual world to go through in order to learn more, to grow, to progress. But when I come back in a physical body, my old belief system, my old characters, they are on my unconscious mind, running freely on the automatic pilot. So now I need to become aware of them and say, hey, stop. Now I know I'm aware of those and choose to interact in a different way. Trials are opportunities of self-enlightenment, of developing self-love, self-respect, dignity. Is that clear? And now in the Spirit's book, question 937. Read for us, Grazie, please.
Ingratitude serves to test your persistence in doing good. It will be credited to you, and those who have been thoughtless towards you will be punished to the same extent that they have been ungrateful.
How do we relate with these within the eyes of self-awareness? What do we learn here? Ingratitude serves to test your persistence in doing good. How do I relate that in relation to self-awareness? If I'm not aware, if my self-awareness is low, what happens? When ingratitude reaches mine,
I think I'm hurt, and
I feel hurt.
I can give up doing the
I can-
good things I'm doing.
I can give up whatever I'm doing, but I will engage, yes. And then will I be progressing? No. So why do I give up?
I'm thinking that the fact that I feel hurt is normal, I would say. Because that also shows that I'm too focused on the other person.
And where do I come internally in relation to the other? Where I coming from? From my ego state. I wouldn't say that it's normal. You know why? Because we have our master signaling, pointing to us, Jesus. Did he feel offended by our imperfections? Never. We feel offended because we still are, let's say, very fat in our pride. It is. We have still a huge degree of pride. How dare you say that? How did you not look at me in that way? The lack then of self-love when we go deeper down on ourselves. As more as we learn through self-awareness, these processes internally, and free yourself freely, choosing freely to override our memories from previous experiences, because that is part of our internal healing, we will not feel hurt anymore.
But there's still a gap between where I'm now and not feeling hurt.
Yes.
So in this space, I can start, even if I feel hurt, I can start maybe with self-awareness, try to be...
To heal myself.
That's it.
To heal, precisely. All the shadows, we have a previous slide was talking about our imperfections. All our imperfections that we become aware of right now is the best way for us to choose to heal from those. Because they are part of our illusions, as we presented in a previous slide, that we bring. So we are essentially beings of love. So if I feel hurt by the imperfection of the others, because they triggered my own imperfections, therefore showing I can increase my ability to love myself. And what can I do in this stage? Learning to forgive. Because we still need to forgive, because we haven't learned to love. By the time that we learn to love, we don't need to forgive, neither will we feel offended. Is that making sense? We all can do it on a daily basis. It will be credited to you, and those who have been thoughtless towards you will be punished to the same extent that they have been ungrateful. How is that coming to us? How can we say that they will be punished if we believe that God is love? Sounds contradiction, isn't it? So how do we understand that? For those who are studying with us, what do we mean by it? What comes to us? Punish here, we can actualize the word understanding, they will be educated, as us as well, because we still are imperfect. Although we are valuable human beings, but we also have our own imperfections. The God who is love will not punish us, but he will give us endless possibilities up to the point that we learn to overcome our ingratitude, which is based on a moral indifference. As more as we evolve, more grateful we will become. Is that clear? Yeah. In the question 933, Allan Kardec teaches us. Danny, read for us, please.
There are persons whose nature makes them jealous of anyone who is successful or who has risen above mediocrity, even though they have no direct interest in their matter. They are jealous solely because they cannot reach the same level.
How is that related with self-awareness? What do we learn here? Through the question 933 from the Spirit's book. There are persons whose nature makes them jealous of anyone who is successful. How do we understand? Do we have those persons on earth? Plenty. Why?
Because they are not self-aware.
They are not conscious, they are not aware. If they are not aware, if they are not conscious, that means they are unconscious. And what is the objective to be on earth? To rescue us from us, to become conscious, to live our journey consciously. Dani is thinking profound. What is coming to your mind? He still carries on, jealous of anyone who is successful or who has risen above mediocrity. So what do we understand by that? Gosh, we are really, really unconscious, aren't we, as immortal beings? We are jealous if someone raised above mediocrity, above the peripheric level of vices, of prejudice, of living more on the instinct level. If someone raises up, we may feel jealous because we are unconscious and we don't take responsibility for ourselves.
I'm thinking when it says because they cannot reach the same level, but it's not true that they cannot reach the same level. They could.
They will do, but in that moment, because they prefer, or us prefer, could also be us, they prefer to be in that mediocre, selfish, prideful state of mind. Because always these aspects, jealous, comes from those states. So I, as immortal being, haven't put much effort in developing myself towards the higher values, then in my inferiority, I may look at the other who already freed themselves from the inferiority and may be jealous. But we all can do it. But in that moment when I'm in that negativity, I'm not choosing to free myself from my illusions. You see? Yeah. And then, even though they have no direct interest in the matter, you can see, it's really the inferiority, the aspect of the spirit who doesn't want to make any effort to re-educate, but I'm not happy with the other who knows more than I. I'm not happy, I cannot vibrate in a goodness, the one who put effort into, who trained, who resignated themselves in order to be where they are. They are jealous solely because they cannot reach the same level at that moment. We all have the free will. If we choose gradually to overcome our shadows, we all can evolve and develop ourselves further. And then it's still the same question we learn. People are usually unhappy because of the importance they attach to the things of this world. Vanity, faded ambition, and greed make them unhappy. If they would raise themselves above the narrow circle of the material life, if they would raise their thoughts towards the infinite, which is their destiny, the vicissitudes of human existence would seem petty and childish. How do we reflect on this? What do we learn?
I think it's all about material and spiritual life. So if we are focused on a material life, from the cot until the just this existence, for example, we are trying to live as much as we can, not trying to develop virtues or ethical values or knowing that there is more than only this. So if we focus on the spiritual life, we will think about the infinite, as it says. And, I think little things or maybe sufferings, it won't be much.
Maybe less.
Yes.
Because we increase our awareness and understand better the natural laws in the universe and, let's say, move ourselves accordingly, isn't it? Yeah. Anything else? What do we understand about the vicissitudes of human existence? Do we all go through our vicissitudes? What are the vicissitudes of human existence, which the higher spirits refer as petty and childish? But we gave a lot of importance sometimes.
Like resentment or...
Resentment, lack of forgiveness, slander, gossip. You understood now? Yeah. Slander, dishonesty. Everybody does it, so why would I not do? And I have explanations for me why I will not do. Even if people look at me as silly, why don't you take advantage? Everybody's doing it. If you don't take what is due, because I'm aware of myself. I know that what is not mine doesn't belong to me. I know that I'm here to develop the really deep, profound values of honesty, of sincerity. Is that making sense? So we give always explanation to us. Grazi, read that one for us, please. Refers to the question 939.
There are two kinds of affection, that of the body and that of the soul, and these are often mistaken for each other. When pure and sympathetic, the affection of the soul is lasting. The affection of the body is perishable. That is why those who believe they loved each other with an eternal love often end up
Detesting each
other when the illusion has vanished.
What is our learning here? So when that happens, here what you just read, the last part, would we say that represents the lack of self-awareness? Yes? Agree? So when we are not aware of ourselves, when we consider that we are the physical body, when we are very, very needy, then we have this mixed of values in relation to affections. Real affections has to do with the physical body or not? No. Why not? Simple. Because we are not the physical body. Simple. Logical. So we are not the physical body, the body will die sooner or later. So if affection has to do with the body, then it would end. But we know that real affection does not relate to the physical body. It is psychological and emotional. Correct? Then it never ends. So if I really, really love my husband from this broader perspective, if he dies, or if I die, my physical body, we keep on in affectional relationship. Is that making sense? What else comes to us here? Developing through self-awareness real affections. Bear in mind what we learned in the question 939. Real affections, we repeat again, has nothing to do with the physical body, merely because we are not the physical body. And real affections has to do with developing real love. Real love that comes from God, that cannot end. Is that making sense? We still have a long way to go, but we are on the way. In the book O Homem Integral, Joana de Angelis teaches us, through self-awareness, it's important that we become aware about resentment, which is a manifestation of aggressive impotence, not externalized, becomes a hint of bitterness to make it unbearable to live with those against whom it turns. Lack of self-awareness when we run away from those that we feel the resentment, but it's our internal process. So we need to look at that. Not run away from us, neither from others, but to allow ourselves to heal from the resentment, which is rooted in selfishness. And now through altruism, through charity, we overcome those aspects. The sorrow or resentment, still Joana de Angelis carries on, are super personalities who are the inferior moral qualities, those inherited from the previous primary experiences: envy, jealousy, disagreements, perversity, dissatisfaction, fear, anger, cruelty, hatred, etc. Now we can see through Joana de Angelis, the spiritual benefactor, that she is bringing us enlightenment in relation to what are the roots of our sorrows or resentment. Is that making sense? So through self-awareness, we now forgive ourselves, and we also forgive others, because we are on the journey of self-enlightenment. And then, in the Jesus e o Evangelho, à luz da... Do you want to copy that one? Okay. In the next slide, we have Jesus e o Evangelho, à luz da psicologia profunda, the book by the Spirit, Joana de Angelis, and she teaches us. In the light of deep psychology, forgiveness is overcoming the disturbing feelings of revenge, images of vengeance and hatred, through the perfect integration of the self, without letting us be harmed by the afflicted occurrences of interpersonal relationship. Will that happen within each one of us when we develop self-awareness? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, because we become aware. We will free ourselves if someone, going back what you said previously, as she concludes here, we will let go the harm afflicted by others. Because as we more learn to forgive, then we don't have any resentment anymore. We allow other people to be in the best that they can, but we choose also to expand in loveness. And then Chico Xavier teaches us, forgive now, today, and tomorrow. Unconditionally. Remember that everyone have their own imperfections as much as we have our own. Is that important to become aware? Fundamentally. And we are learning with the Spirit, like Chico Xavier, he says, forgive now, engage in your evolution now, today, in the present, and tomorrow. And he says, unconditionally. That means don't put conditions when you forgive. But just forgive if you change that way of being. No, that is conditional. That is conditional. Just forgive if you from now on don't say that anymore. We don't have control of that. And then in the book, What is Spiritism? We learn with selfishness, people are in constant fight. Are we aware of that? Or do we think that the others are responsible? And then he carries on. With charity, they are at peace. Do we want to have peace at home, in our workplace, in our study groups, in our communities? Charity, charity, charity. And then St. Augustine concludes our study for today regarding self-awareness in this stage of our study. In the question 919, and he teaches, self-knowledge is the key of individual progress. Self-knowledge is related to self-awareness. We will not have self-knowledge without becoming aware. They are interconnected. Are we clear here? And in that way, we are coming to the end of our study. And we finish and conclude it with a prayer, as we always do, finalizing this important moment that all of us, incarnates, and all of those in spirit who are with us, bend our hearts in gratitude. There was a great love for all. God granted us the possibilities and the opportunities for us in this moment, freely choosing to study a bit more self-awareness. That gradually we will understand that we are all immortal beings, beings essentially of love, of light and peace. And whatever the torments that may emerge from our unconscious minds, may we choose freely and lovingly to forgive ourselves and choose to re-educate in the way that we think and behave. Always bear in mind that our master or guide is Jesus, the most perfect being on earth, that will never frustrate us, and we will always learn, especially to learn with him to be more humble, more forgiving, more tolerant, and choosing freely to cooperate more and more towards the good for everyone, so that we overcome our shadows or our imperfections or all limitations. We know that the good for all, as taught by Jesus, is the expression of real love. Love is the movement, is the goodness in action. And blessed with peace, with light, feeling more motivated and stronger within, may we carry on our journey, more aware, more conscious, and be better today than yesterday, and tomorrow better than today. So good.